The Supreme Court today stayed criminal defamation proceedings against Leader of Opposition in Lok Sabha, Rahul Gandhi, for his remarks on the line of actual control of the India-Tibet situation during 2022 Bharat Jodo Yatra. It's the India-Tibet border situation, the face-off between India and China. A division bench comprising Justices Deepankar Datta and Augustine George Massey asked, how did Rahul Gandhi get to know that 2,000 square kilometers of Indian territory was acquired by China? What credible material did Rahul Gandhi have? But the most stinging observation was the apex court saying that if you're a true Indian, you will not say all of this or words to that effect. And that has triggered a massive political war between the BJP and the Congress.
चाइना ने 2000 स्क्वायर किलोमीटर हमारी जमीन ले ली है। प्रधानमंत्री जी कहते हैं कि हमारे बॉर्डर के अंदर कोई नहीं आया।
That is where it all began. During the Bharat Jodo Yatra in December 2022, Rahul Gandhi alleged that a former army officer had informed him that China had occupied 2,000 square kilometers of Indian territory.
जिन्होंने 2000 स्क्वायर किलोमीटर हिंदुस्तान का उठा लिया, जिन्होंने हिंदुस्तान के 20 जवानों को शहीद किया, जो हमारे जवानों को अरुणाचल प्रदेश में पीट रहे हैं, मैंने कहा हिंदुस्तान की प्रेस मुझसे इनके बारे में एक सवाल नहीं पूछेगी।
On Monday, the Supreme Court took strong exception to the Congress leader's remark. The top court rebuked Rahul Gandhi, saying such statements were unbecoming of a true Indian. At the same time, the court stayed defamation proceedings against Rahul in the trial court. Justices Deepankar Datta and Augustine George Massey pressed Gandhi with sharp questions, asking Rahul, how did he know that China had annexed 2,000 kilometers? The Supreme Court asked, what evidence supported Rahul's claim? The Supreme Court also asked Rahul, why did not he, as a leader of opposition, raise the matter in the parliament, but rushed to make such a claim publicly? In his defense, Gandhi contended that he had not entered politics just for parliamentary privilege and has constitutional right to ask questions in the public.
I'm surprised by this oral observation. So does it mean that we in the opposition can't raise an issue of national concern unless we have documentary proof of it? So the issue with China has been a long-running issue. People know that we have a very tense border. We have had confrontation in the border. There has also been many reports which have said that we have ceded territory. So as the leader of opposition, it's Rahul Gandhi's right to raise these issues.
The government hit back sharply, referring to Rahul Gandhi as a China guru who is out to demoralize the forces through lies and deceit.
This kind of statement from the leader of opposition is extremely harmful for the nation and it demoralizes our forces. So we have been making appeal to Sri Rahul Gandhi not to make such kind of unsubstantiated statement. But he doesn't listen to us. I'm very happy that at least Supreme Court has now given him a warning.
वो एंटी इंडिया उनकी सोच है और भारत के अगेंस्ट हमेशा बोलते हैं, तो ये एक बहुत ही वेलकम मूव है बाय द सुप्रीम कोर्ट कि उन्होंने उनको इस तरह की फटकार लगाई है। अब आने वाले समय में भी है और लोगों को भी ध्यान रखना चाहिए कि वो भारत की अस्मिता को, अखंडता को और सबसे ज्यादा तो उनके मनोबल को किसी तरह की ठेस न पहुंचाए।
BJP called him a certified anti-national, accusing him of seeking foreign intervention against Prime Minister Modi and alleging that he had signed a secret pact with China.
This question raises an important question again about the credibility of Mr. Rahul Gandhi. How mature is he as a leader of the Congress party and now as the leader of opposition?
चौकीदार, चौकीदार, चौकीदार.
Rahul had earlier apologized to top court for wrongly attributing his Chaukidar Chor remark. Is the pressure to take on Modi government making Rahul Gandhi commit political blunders? As the political battle intensifies, the Supreme Court's observations and the BJP's counter-attack have pushed Rahul Gandhi's remarks back into the spotlight, raising serious questions about speech, accountability and national security. With Anisha Mathur and Piyush Mishra, Bureau Report, India Today.
So the apex court, it stayed criminal defamation proceedings against Rahul Gandhi for claiming China had captured 2,000 kilometers of Indian territory, killing 20 Indian soldiers and thrashing, PETA, as he put it, our soldiers in Arunachal Pradesh. The apex court asked, how did he know China had grabbed 2,000 kilometers of Indian land? Was he there? A true Indian won't say all of this or words to that effect. So let's try and make sense of this big political showdown. Joining me on India First is Dr. Shama Mohammed, spokesperson, national spokesperson of the Congress, Dr. Syed Zafar Islam, national spokesperson and former member of parliament of the BJP. Karna Nandi is a senior advocate of the Supreme Court. Jay Anand Dehadrai is an advocate in the Supreme Court of India. Major General Sanjay Meston joins us as a defense expert and analyst, someone who served on ground in Ladakh. Sandeep Punithan is a senior journalist who was in Ladakh during the 2020 standoff with me. Dr. Shama Mohammed, the Supreme Court asked, how did Rahul Gandhi know that 2,000 kilometers of our land has been taken by China? Was he there? Strong words by the Supreme Court, including an observation that a true Indian would not say any of this or words to that effect. In fact, Union Minister Hardeep Puri, he says Rahul Gandhi should apologize to the nation and our armed forces and introspect over his continuation in public life, ma'am.
Okay, so now since I've been watching for 10 minutes all your things, you have to give us time. First and foremost, I am very upset and shocked that on a serious issue, India Today is taking the mic to a lady called Kangana Ranaut, who called Rohit Sharma Dobi ka kutta and Atangwadi.
Can we stay on the substantive issue? She's a member of parliament.
I don't
but
care.
Be that as it may, you may not care, but let's stay on the substantive issue. Let's stay on the substantive issue. You don't decide who we take our mic to. Let's be very clear about that, Dr. Mohammed.
She's an anti-national. When you call your cricketer Atangwadi, you're an anti-national. Now, let me get to the point.
Yes.
The court, the judge, what is his job? To uphold the constitution and to give the judgment. It is not his duty to speak about anybody in a certain manner, to pass comments. That is not what the judge has to do. He's right. He stayed the judgment, but to speak in a certain derogatory manner about anybody is not. It is the leader of opposition's right to question. Now, I'm going to give you a couple of points on what Rahul Gandhi. September 1st, 2020. All right, it's a Hindu newspaper, is a good newspaper. It is read by many. It is not some YouTube channel or anything. Vijeta Singh's article, I'm going to read it out. About 1,000 square kilometers of area in Ladakh along the line of actual control is now under Chinese control. Intelligence inputs provided to the center suggest. All right.
And he added another 1,000 kilometers to that. Is that what you're saying? But let me bring in Syed Zafar Islam. Ma'am, it has to be conversational and it has to be quick. It has to be quick, ma'am.
I'm leaving the debate. You have to.
Ma'am, be that as it may. Ma'am, be my guest. Be my guest. My question to you is.
Gaurav.
Okay.
If a right winger, are you going to keep interrupting Zafar Islam just like you interrupt me?
Oh, absolutely. If he takes more than his time, go ahead. Ma'am, I have 6 guests. Brevity has to be your forte. Go on, quickly complete your point, ma'am.
Let me finish. I have a couple of points. Otherwise, don't invite 6 guests. You need to give me time to defend my leader. Then, Tapir Gao, the MP from Arunachal, said 50 to 60 kilometers inside Arunachal. Jamyang, their MP, former MP of Ladakh, says it is not just Pangong Tso. It is much more than that. So these are not anybody from the Congress party. BJP president of Leh district, his name is Dorje, former president. He said huge area in Leh taken. So let's understand Arunachal, Leh, Ladakh. Satellite images show the Chinese haven't come in. We had corps commander meetings, around 14 to more. And what did Mr. Narendra Modi say? He said, na koi gussa hai, na koi gussenga. Nobody has entered. So why did 20 of our soldiers die? Why were they martyred? And why did we have corp commander meetings? Let me ask you one thing. Can you show us the satellite images of India from 2014 to 2025? And I want to ask Zafar, are we back to the 2020 April status quo ante or not? These questions have to be
Syed
answered.
Zafar Islam, Dr. Syed Zafar Islam, Union Education Minister Dharmendra Pradhan observed that in parliamentary history of a country, this is perhaps the first time that the court has made such a strong observation about the leader of opposition. But as Abhishek Manu Singhvi observed in court, it's the job of the leader of opposition to ask questions. The government should respond. The questions that Dr. Shama Mohammed has raised are questions that are in public domain. How is Rahul Gandhi wrong if he raises these questions, sir?
I think the Honorable Supreme Court has made few observations. One of the observations, of course, he said that he should have raised this issue on the floor of the parliament instead of misleading the people. Every time, the only agenda Rahul Gandhi has to mislead the people, make this kind of a statement. Like, for instance, he made a certain kind of a statement that about Rafale. He made a statement that about demonetization, that if he'll speak,
sir, let's stay on the issue of Ladakh for the moment, because the Supreme Court's observations were strictly about the situation on LAC.
I'm coming to that. I said he's an irresponsible leader. He doesn't know what exactly he's speaking. He doesn't know when he opens his mouth that he's speaking for the country or against the country, and whether he's really deemed fit to be a leader of opposition. That is something which the observation of the Supreme Court actually exposes him that he is not.
Sir, but Supreme Court did not say that he's not fit to be leader of opposition.
But he said anybody who is making this kind of a statement, should think, as an Indian, should make this kind of a statement. And he happens to be a leader of opposition. He has more responsibility on his shoulder than a normal Indian who is on the street, because he's the leader of opposition.
Sir,
he should
the
be
question,
sensitive.
and I will come back to you to respond to this. The point that Dr. Shama Mohammed raises is, if there is an incursion which is being pointed out, if there is, and if it's being written about extensively...
I'll respond to that. In fact, defense minister...
That is for the government to come clean on it, instead of saying, the Congress party has na koi ghusa hai, na koi ghusa hai.
Are you not aware?
Are we back to the 2020 situation?
Are you not aware that the Honorable Defense Minister on the floor of the Parliament has made this statement? He has made this statement and confirmed that there is absolutely no truth in what Mr. Rahul Gandhi is making a statement outside the Parliament. So there is a record in the Parliament. Such a statement has been made by the Defense Minister on the floor of the Parliament. I happened to be at Parliament at that point in time, and the statement was made. So there is no ambiguity. There is no speculation here.
Dr. Mohammed, permit me to bring in our other guests. I'll come back to you.
One point.
A true Indian won't say all of this. Does this observation actually put Rahul Gandhi in a spot, in a very, very difficult position? Because if I may, BJP's IT cell head, Amit Malviya, says Rahul Gandhi now is certified anti-national.
Gaurav Sawant, I'm afraid the line isn't very clear. But I think from what I got of the previous arguments, they were political arguments, right? This is a court case. And this is not just a court case, it is a criminal court case. So today, while I'm seeing various headlines from the media saying Rahul Gandhi rapped on knuckles, the Supreme Court comes down heavily on Rahul Gandhi. Today, there was one thing that needed to happen legally. One. Was notice going to be issued and a stay pursuant to that. That happened. Why did the Supreme Court issue notice and a stay? The reason is that you cannot go around, if you disagree with someone or if you think it's a bit rude, you can't go around suing people for criminal defamation. Because tomorrow you say something that X doesn't agree with. We don't want them to say, my feelings are hurt because you said something about whether it's the army or whether it's the Congress party. Say you say something about the Congress party, right? And a Congress worker or somebody who's unrelated to the Congress and feels bad for the Congress party goes off and files a criminal defamation case against you. We do not want that. Why? Because political speech is incredibly important, not just democratically, but also constitutionally. We are a democratic constitutional republic. What does that mean? It means that there are people say different things. The leader of the opposition may ask questions about the army. It could be because he is concerned about army people being killed in a manner that they should not be. I mean, obviously, army people should never be killed, but he may be concerned about the ramifications on army personnel with regard to the issues he's talking about. And so let us now come to the law. In what way does the IPC, and this case would be under the Indian Penal Code because it was prior to the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita coming in, but it would be tried under the Bharatiya Nyaya Suraksha Sanhita. That's a technical legal argument that I won't get into, but take it as a given. Now, in such a situation, what is the procedural law and the substantive law that protects Mr. Gandhi? Number one, the fifth exception to defamation says that imputation of truth which public good requires to be made or published, right? So when it is not defamation to impute anything which is concerning any person or any association, it should be for the public good that the imputation should be made or public.
Fair enough. Let me bring in Jayanant Dehadrai.
Points with regard to the reason why today's stay was granted. Number two, this person comes, he's the former head of the Border Roads Organization, and he says, I'm deeply offended on behalf of the army. He cannot do that. There was a case in which a worker came and said that I am offended on behalf of Mahatma Gandhi, to which the court said, I am also offended on behalf of Mahatma Gandhi, but can we bring a case of criminal defamation? No, we cannot.
Okay, let me bring in Jayanant Dehadrai. So let's keep this conversational, Ms. Nandi. Hold your thoughts. I'll come back to you. Is there merit in what the Supreme Court said? The proceedings against Rahul Gandhi have been stayed. Is there an expectation that leader of opposition, as the government says, should be more responsible in his public statements, the manner in which the court responded, or can no third person take offense to what was said about the army, especially at a time when it's for greater public good to know what was happening at the LAC, sir?
Hi, Gaurav. Good evening. Very quickly, firstly, this is the Indian Supreme Court. This is not the Supreme Court of Pakistan. So I think what the Supreme Court has said, as the guardian of the Constitution in terms of 19(1)(g), which guarantees free speech, there are also certain exceptions to that guarantee. You can't simply come out merely because you're the leader of the opposition, come out and say whatever you please, first. Second, someone said something right now about truth being an exception to the criminal law of defamation. But what he said isn't the truth. This was a positive statement that he put out. This was not some question he was asking for the larger good. This was, he came out and he insulted, demoralized the Indian armed forces. The sort of words that he used, he said, Indian Jawano ko pita gaya. They were thrashed. Then he says that 2,000 square kilometers were taken away. This is beyond awful. I mean, how can the person who is, yes, he's supposed to ask political questions. I agree with what Shama Mohammed says, that if there are, political questions he wants to ask, absolutely, he's meant to. That's how democracy functions. But I'm sorry, what he said was not a political question in the least. If he had said that the BJP has mishandled this situation, that would be one thing. You come out and you start attacking, criticizing the armed forces, and specifically humiliating soldiers who are laying down their lives in the toughest conditions, toughest terrain imaginable, and you use such horrible language for them. And the person who has filed this complaint in UP, he's a concerned person. I'll just add one point very quickly, Gaurav, if you'll permit me. That person is a retired army officer. He used to serve in the BRO. He has as much to lose. Imagine a person devotes his entire life, stays away from his family, moves to the border where the harshest terrain imaginable exists, right? And then lays down his life. He sees his friends getting, killed. And then he has to listen to this statement where their sacrifices, their valor is insulted in this obnoxious manner. One last thing. What the Supreme Court has said today, I think it is absolutely balanced. I quite agree with what Ms. Nandi said before me. She's right to the extent that they have stayed it, all right. But I wouldn't jump to a conclusion that they're going to set aside what the Allahabad High Court has said, because there's also the element, Gaurav, of sedition, and this is really important. Statements and words that are spoken in a manner that can affect the sovereignty and unity of our country, they come within sedition. So, criminal defamation under the old law, as Ms. Nandi rightly points out, that might be attracted to this case, merely restricts itself to, a much milder punishment. But if it comes into the realm of sedition, this is a very serious thing. And the Supreme Court, I think, has rightly echoed the sentiment of every Indian. This is not a political issue. Please let me highlight that. This is an apolitical statement from myself as well. You can't merely, because you're the leader of the opposition, your last name is Gandhi. So you feel you have some immunity to say whatever you like about the armed forces in India's sovereignty. I'm sorry, it doesn't fly. And I'm glad that the Supreme
I'll get the
Court has
Congress to
issued
respond
notice.
to that. I'll get the Congress to respond to that. But on the factual position on ground, I want to bring in two people who would know what's happening there. General Meston and my colleague Sandeep Unnithan. General Meston, factual position on ground vis-a-vis the claims about situation at LAC. Has China taken 2,000 square kilometers of Indian territory since the 2020 face-off in eastern Ladakh? Or, General, is every inch being hotly contested with 50,000 troops deployed on either side at the LAC?
Gaurav, good evening. Firstly, coming on to the LAC, I was luckily the Colonel GS of the same division in Leh Ladakh and organizing all these patrolling programs, etc. And thereafter, I was also looking after the entire LAC with China in the Military Operations Directorate as a brigadier way back in 2011. And of course, I commanded the Nathula Brigade. So my experience on ground goes that whatever situation there, I think the things have not changed. Reason being, because the same patrolling points the Indian Army is going as on date, and which was in my time also way back in 2004 or, all these timelines. The fact of the matter is, if there is so much contentious issue happening, in the last 5 years, I've heard a number of discussions, some intrusions have taken place. The armed forces have to be trusted. They are on ground. The ITBP is there on ground. So sometimes, wrong understanding, wrong perception, someone may have given out somewhere, and that leads to wrong understanding. On ground, I am quite clear that perhaps no intrusion of any kind has taken place. Yes, contentious issues were like PP-15 or PP-14. Their patrols used to go. I think mutually it was decided in the Corps Commanders Conference that now, some kind of a buffer zone was created, and thereafter it was decided that whenever they patrol, they will inform each other side. And in my time, we never used to inform. We used to just go and patrol, and that's
so there is a change. So there is a change, Sandeep. And when we say that people are going up to, the soldiers are going up to various patrol points, clearly they aren't. There is a buffer zone. Point one, Sandeep, is that buffer zone on our side. You and I have reported from Ladakh, not only during the 2020 standoff, but also subsequently. On facts, is Rahul Gandhi on facts, or is he on a sticky wicket on facts?
Gaurav, I think Rahul Gandhi is on a sticky wicket on facts because, let's face it, we lost 38,000 square kilometers of land in Ladakh, and we all know when that happened, in 1962. So, after losing that entire chunk of territory, that's Aksai Chin, all this is small change, what we're really talking about. We've lost our entire one half of, Ladakh to the Chinese in 62. And what we're talking about now is literally, holding the line since 1962. And what is happening is that that line of actual control is not a formal line. It's not recognized by either side. It's patrolled to an extent that it will actually result in a formal, border at some point. That's in discussion right now. So it's, we patrol to our claims, the Chinese patrol to their claims. So the whole situation is a bit fluid right there. And to say that, 2,000 kilometers or 3,000 kilometers have been lost, these are all notional claims, Gaurav. And, as far as we know, the situation is back to where it is in 2020.
Okay. Dr. Shama Mohammed, BJP Vice President Jay Panda says anyone other than the current LOP would have gone into exile from sheer shame. He insists that the epic comment, if you were a true Indian, but the Supreme Court verbalizes what crores of Bhartiyas have been speaking for long. Now, if both sides are contesting for territory, how is that loss of territory, ma'am?
Okay, so let's make one thing very clear. The loss of territory was clearly mentioned by, as I mentioned, One Arunachal BJP MP as well as their Ladakh BJP MP. It is not by the Congress. Now, I want to respond to each one. Zafar says in the floor of the parliament, yes, this is not an autocracy, in a democracy. Rajnath Singh came to the floor of the parliament and read out a statement. We said we wanted a discussion. From 2020 to now, we haven't had a discussion on Galwan, and you cannot deny that, Zafar Islam. So I'm not going to listen to what Rajnath Singh wants to say. I want a discussion. The Congress party wants a discussion. Let's do that. If you have the guts, let's do it in the monsoon session. Of course, you all will not, because you know you're at the wrong. Number two, the guy, I don't know what his name is, some new person, another lawyer, not Karuna. The person says he has demoralized
Go on, ma'am.
I don't know who he is. He has demoralized the armed forces. He has done this, he has done that. Now, Jay Dehadrai, I want to ask you, on 26/11, there was a chief minister standing out when the operation against the Pakistanis were happening. He was insulting the government. He was insulting Hemant Karkare. He was insulting Sandeep Unithar. That time you have no problem. No, when we were fighting terrorists, this chief minister called Narendra Modi was talking against the government of India, against the police of India, against the NSG of India. But that is not insult. That cannot be, that is nothing wrong. My leader never did this. When Operation Sindoor happened, he said, we stand with the government, we stand with the army. So if you don't know these things, you should shut your mouth and stay wherever and do law. Not come and start acting
no
like this.
personal attacks on my guests. Dr. Sharma, it's my request. No personal attacks on our guests.
I'd like to respond to Mr. Muhammad, because
yes, one by one.
No,
I was extremely civilized. I was extremely civilized when I spoke about Ms. Muhammad.
No.
As soon as Dr. Muhammad completes her point, I'm coming to you, sir. As soon as Dr. Muhammad completes her point. Yes, Dr. Sharma Muhammad.
Sandeep Unithan talks about Aksai Chin. Sandeep Unithan, you're a Malayali, I know that. Did we ever deny that? We had a discussion. Vajpayee asked questions during the time. Nehru never said that we did not. It happened, we agree, and we know it. It's in the history books. Why does this man called Narendra Modi say, no, koi gussa hai?
Ma'am, he's the Prime Minister of India. Ma'am, he's the Prime Minister of India.
Okay, let him be the Prime Minister of India. Why does he keep denying these things? I want to know that. The Prime Minister of India denies. Isn't that
Gaurav, can I just come in, please?
I'd like to respond.
First, Dr. Syed Zafar Islam, and then Jayanand Dehadrai.
When the Prime Minister, why did you have 14 corps commander meetings?
You have spoken, Dr. Sharma.
Why did you have 14 corps commander meetings? If there was nothing wrong,
Syed Zafar Islam to respond, because Jairam Ramesh, Syed Zafar Islam, he's actually doubled down, saying ever since 20 brave soldiers were martyred in Galwan on June 15, 2020, every patriotic Indian has sought answers. But instead of providing answers, the Narendra Modi government for the past 5 years has chosen to obfuscate, hide the truth with a policy of DDLJ, and that's not Dilwale Dulhania Le Jayenge. It's deny, distract, lie, and justify. Dr. Syed Zafar Islam.
Gaurav, I think there is absolutely no headroom left for this kind of a speculation, rhetoric, what Sharma Muhammad is demonstrating here. This only suggests that the observation made by the Honorable Supreme Court gives certificate for all the anti-India thoughts Rahul Gandhi and his lieutenants have. And one of them is demonstrating here as well. The way she is looking, the way she is speaking, the way she is being aggressive is okay, but being uncivilized, and we are not being civil.
Okay, so sir, no personal attacks. Dr. Sharma Muhammad is a respected guest, sir.
You call Rahul Gandhi names. How dare you call him?
You need to be civil.
My leader names. So why do you say
you cannot be uncivil when you are talking about the Honorable Prime Minister. You cannot speak like the language you are using for the Honorable Prime Minister of this country.
You have no right to speak
you need to understand that you are speaking about the Prime Minister of this great country, not about your leader who is a leader of opposition and is not respected by the people of this great country.
Okay, on the substantive issue. Sir, on the substantive
issue. Having said that, the statement by the Honorable Defense Minister have been made on the floor of the Parliament, and everybody, except few exceptions, who are been given certificate by none other than Supreme Court that they have anti-national mindset, are raising this question. Otherwise, every single Indian were satisfied the kind of statement which has been made by the Honorable Defense Minister on the floor of the Parliament. Having said that, we are always happy and ready to discuss every issue in Parliament. But
And yet that discussion,
they only want to disrupt.
discussion
They only want to
discuss it.
Only
is
want to
awaited,
disrupt the
but
Parliament.
okay. Jayanand Dehadrai, before I bring in Karna Nandi,
thank you.
You know, you wanted to respond to Dr. Shamma Mohammed, but I also wanted to draw your attention to what the Allahabad High Court had said. Justice Subhash Vidyarthi had observed that freedom of speech does not include the right to make statements to defame the army. You'd said something on similar lines. Now, is there a word of caution to those who may want to use the armed forces as a stick to beat the government with, with statements are made?
There is nowhere Rahul Gandhi defend the army, Gaurav. That's a wrong statement.
Gaurav, you're absolutely right.
हमारी सेना को पीटा और words to that effect. Madam, I'll play that out for you. But Jayanand Dehadrai.
If this banshee could keep quiet for 2 minutes, she might get a brain aneurysm.
No personal attack, sir.
So I'd request her to please calm down, and I understand her frustration with a leader like Rahul Gandhi.
Look at your class.
Yes,
a leader like Rahul Gandhi.
No personal attacks. My humble request to all our guests.
Also, if I had a leader like Rahul Gandhi, which I could defend every day, I would be extremely frustrated. And insofar as not one
Absolutely.
moment, ma'am, please take it easy.
My apologies. My apologies, Dr. Mohammed.
Please take a deep breath. She said some very
Dr.
nasty
Mohammed,
things to me.
my
Tell her to
apologies,
take a
but
deep breath, please.
Did I call him something?
She said some very nasty things.
Yes,
she
but
should
only
remember
one
who I
person
am
at a
because
time.
she was once accompanied. She once came to a dinner with Pinaki Misra. I'm sure she remembers who I am.
Okay.
She spent an entire evening there. So certainly she remembers who I am. She wouldn't have forgotten it. So insofar as that is concerned, I mean, I don't make any personal remarks against anybody. It's unnecessary. This is a matter that concerns national security. It's an important issue. And I think the Honorable Supreme Court has said something very serious today. And what you were pointing out about the Allahabad High Court also is absolutely correct. They have pointed out something extremely important. They say your freedom of speech cannot possibly extend to demoralizing the armed forces. You are entering into very dangerous territory that attacks the sovereignty and unity of this country. I think that's a very reasonable thing to say. And as I said earlier, this is the Indian Supreme Court with Indian judges. Of course, they're going to echo this sentiment. And yes, they have acted I think the equities have been perfectly balanced. They are going to hear Mr. Gandhi. He's filed a petition. He has every right to be heard, to test his rights. But at the same time, the bench has also expressed, what every Indian, it feels about this. That your constitutional rights don't extend, I'm sorry, to insulting our brave armed, our soldiers, our brave soldiers. You say, unko pita Chinese ne aake, unko ye kya. I mean, what sort of language is this? Is this a serious politician? Is this a serious leader of the opposition? And which is why now I understand, just one last thing, which is why now I understand when extremely vituperative, extremely, crass spokespersons like the lady who spoke before me, Shamma Mohammed, when they come and represent the Congress. Now I understand why it's like that, because like leader, like spokesperson.
My request to all our guests,
this is what they have. This is what the party is about.
Let's just keep this civil. My apologies, because we sincerely don't want...
She spoke in a very nasty way about me, and that was completely unnecessary because she got rattled. Because I said something, I spoke on law and constitution. She got completely rattled. And the other problem, Gaurav, just let me say one
before
thing.
I bring in Karna Nandi.
Because I'm not a political person, let me just say one last thing, please. I'm not a political person. I have no political inclination. But I want to say one thing. The problem that this country has faced in terms of development and even in terms of geopolitical issues that we face today because of Aksai Chin and how it was given away in 1962, a lot of it has to do with sycophancy that infects the Congress party. You had generals that were brought in because they were friendly with certain individuals of the Nehru clan. Which is why they were brought in. And we all know about how they botched up military operations through the ages. So I'm sorry,
that's a debate for another time. Absolutely, Jayanand Dehadrai. That's a debate for another time. Before we move forward, and since this question is being raised repeatedly, I want our viewers to listen in to what Rahul Gandhi had said during the Bharat Jodo Yatra. I'll bring in Karna Nandi and Jill Meston. Listen in.
जिन्होंने 2000 स्क्वायर किलोमीटर हिंदुस्तान का उठा लिया, जिन्होंने हिंदुस्तान के 20 जवानों को शहीद किया, जो हमारे जवानों को अरुणाचल प्रदेश में पीट रहे हैं, मैंने कहा हिंदुस्तान की प्रेस मुझसे इनके बारे में एक सवाल नहीं पूछेगी।
अरुणाचल प्रदेश में जो हमारे जवानों को पीट रहे हैं, करना नंदी, your appreciation when it's a conversation about our armed forces and we are playing out images of what happened in Yangtze in Arunachal Pradesh, and I'll tell you facts because I was reporting from Arunachal Pradesh when this incident happened, and facts were just the opposite. But go on, just on the words used by the leader of opposition, madam.
I would like to speak to the manner in which the previous discussion came down. You cannot, under any circumstances, refer to a co-panelist as a banshee or crass or that kind of thing. And I think when there is
ma'am, I've already apologized for that. Can we stay on the substantive issue?
It really has to be very clear.
Absolutely. And I've already apologized, to Dr. Mohammed and for that issue. Also the comments that were made, about all our guests. All my guests are respectable for me. I respect all our guests and I don't expect that from anybody. But can we stay on the substantive issue, Dr. Ms. Nandi, please?
Yes. Now, on the substantive issue, I just heard what Mr. Gandhi said. He said, jawan shaheed ho gaye, and then he said, jawano ko peeta gaya. Right? Now, jawano ko peeta gaya is not the happiest language. Absolutely. There's no question of it. But is it only when we speak of the army in very glowing terms that things are going to be reported? Because let us be clear that sometimes there are problems. And even
how shameful! I can't believe my ears, and I can't believe, Gaurav, that we're giving a platform to such vile anti-national thinking. It's sickening. If this is how Ms. Nandi thinks, that you have to speak of the armed forces in critical terms, like in humiliating terms, like that, to draw attention to an issue. This is sickening. I understand that she's trying to impress the leaders of the Congress party, but this is absolutely violent and sickening.
I'm only staying on the substantive issue for the simple reason that we were reporting when Galwan happened. We were reporting from Ladakh. Both Sandeep Punithan and I, we were reporting from Ladakh. In fact, I drove all the way to Daulat Beg Oldie at the height of the standoff when certain elements were spreading these rumors that India had been cut off at Galwan. Such rumors were spread in our country, and I reported from Daulat Beg Oldie at that time. So I'm staying on the substantive issue. When he's saying 2,000 square kilometers have been taken away, Dr. Nandi.
Or not. You are not whether it's truthful or not. Correct?
I know it was in Yangtze. Our soldiers beat the Chinese to the top. And then it's the Chinese who are at the other end. And then saying, Hamare jawano ko peeta. Jal Meston, your appreciation of the language that was used, sir.
Gaurav, I'm very clear. In the last few years, most of the politicians, their language actually needs perhaps an improvement, whether it is of the Congress or any party. The word "pit ke aaya" definitely is not conducive. It could have been soldiers were fired upon. Soldiers were attacked upon, or something to that effect. Like a sportsman who goes in the Olympics, he does not win a medal. We don't say ki yaar pit ke aaya. We say ki he couldn't get it or something of that sort. So our language has to be respectful, and especially towards the nation and towards the armed forces. And I think it goes for everyone. Even in this panel discussion, I'm just watching that some of the people, are using derogatory language towards each other. And mind you, everyone watches it, most of the Indians, and I keep interacting with the common man. They also state that people don't use good language. So I think Supreme Court has very, very rightfully conveyed any Indian should speak a correct, decent language, and that matters. So,
sir, stay with me for a moment. I want our viewers to know facts. When people say 20 Indian soldiers made the supreme sacrifice of their lives, the then Army Commander of Northern Command, Lieutenant General Y.K. Joshi, incidentally, he's a Kargil war hero. He was awarded a Veer Chakra in active combat in Kargil. He was the Army Commander at the time of Galwan. And I put this question to him. We had 20 fatalities. What were the casualties on the other side? So that Hamari Sena pitti nahi hai. Listen into what he told me on my podcast, Chakraview on India Today. Just listen into General Joshi.
Sir, we suffered 20 fatalities. How much in your assessment did the Chinese suffer?
Yeah, so the Chinese also lost their commanding officer. They suffered about 45 plus casualties. So this was also confirmed by Australian intelligence, which came up later with an article, and also the Russian TASS had also published this, that they have suffered that many casualties. Plus we were also observing we had an observation post on one of the flanks of Galwan, wherein, he was counting the number of people that were being carried and taken, which was, much more than 45 actually. One was not sure that time that how many fatal and how many this, but they have suffered a large amount of casualties. While they admitted only 4, they're also much, much later.
That also much later.
Absolutely. So they also suffered a large number of casualties, but they want to save face and they don't want to admit their own casualties. Well, we
are a democracy. But if the Chinese suffered 45 plus casualties, was this the first time that India very strongly and militarily stood up to China, drew a red line and said, thus far and no further?
Absolutely. So Galwan was a red line. And then we told the Chinese very, very clearly that, we have lost people and you have broken all the agreements. So now we are not going to follow those agreements. And, we're not going to get into the scuffles that was happening earlier, the face-off drills and all that is over. And that was very, very clearly indicated to them. But post-Galwan, while we continue to have flag meetings, but since he had also suffered casualties, that acrimony continued and he was not ready to relent at all. And it was during this period, from the 15th of June till, end of August, is when all that build-up, which I talked about earlier, happened. And we continuously planned our quid pro quo options. We planned, we rehearsed, we continued to maintain surprise, and went into a large number of details that what is to be done, what is not to be done.
So, Sandeep, factual position on Galwan, we lost 20, the Chinese lost more than 45. There is evidence to suggest that, but government, of course, is keeping that close to its chest. There are other intelligence agencies who've said that in public domain, including Russia and Australia. But even Yang say, it's in public domain, hamare jawan nahi pite. What were facts, Sandeep?
Well, absolutely, Gaurav. And Galwan, it takes the Chinese decades to come out with their casualty figures. I'm not surprised at all. We are a democracy, they are a communist dictatorship, right? They hide numbers, they never come out with the truth, just like Pakistan never claims bodies or comes out with casualty figures. But Yangtze that you mentioned, Gaurav, 9th of December, you had over 300 Chinese troops creeping up onto our soldiers in the dead of the night. They were armed with spiky clubs, all of the kinds that we saw in Galwan just 2 years prior. This is December 9th, 2022. And our Jawans from the Jat Regiment, the Jak LI, the Sikh Light Infantry Regiment, they rounded up the Chinese and they thrashed them. Now, there are videos to prove that it was actually the Chinese soldiers who were being thrashed in Arunachal Pradesh and not Indian Army soldiers, as the leader of the opposition seems to indicate. That was the time that India turned the tables on China. It was called Galwan 2.0, but the end result was very different for the PLA. If they thought that they were going to get some kind of ingress into Arunachal Pradesh, I think the Indian Army showed them what they were made of. And
very clearly, even in Galwan, you can see when the Chinese are trying to come forward, there's this young Manipuri officer who just stands like this and does not let them come forward. I have breaking news that's coming in. I want to thank all my guests, but there's a big story that is coming in. US President Donald Trump, he is to raise tariff on India. Donald Trump has posted India is not only buying massive amounts of Russian oil, they are then, for much of that oil purchase, selling it on the open market for big profit. They don't care how many people in Ukraine are being killed by the Russian war machine. And because of this, I will be substantially raising the tariff paid by India to the United States of America. So he's upping the ante. I quickly want to now cut across to my colleague Pranay. Pranay is joining me for more. Pranay Upadhyay joins us for more on this big story. Pranay, bring us details, because India is not backing down. India has made one thing very clear, buying Russian oil. And in fact, Europe is buying a lot of that oil from India after we've refined it, isn't it? Pranay, bring us details.
Gaurav, this is a major escalation by the US President Donald Trump, because when he says that India is responsible for the death of Ukrainian people in Ukraine, in Russia-Ukraine war, this is really a massive thing, because India is the first country. India has always maintained that this conflict cannot be solved by war on the battlefield. Ye yuddha ka samay nahi hai. This is what Indian Prime Minister told both the Ukrainian President as well as the Russian President. India, at various forums, India has said this thing. But US President Donald Trump holding India responsible for this conflict, and also accusing India for fueling the Russian economy. This is way too much, Gaurav, I would say, because if you see, China is the major buyer of Russian oil, and with China there is a tariff truce. While on the other side, he is continuously escalating the tariff rates with India. So this is clearly he's trying to make it personal with India, and targeting India on tariff, on holding India accountable and responsible for what is happening in Russia-Ukraine conflict. This is really I would say bizarre, because
So
India,
what explains Donald Trump escalating it? Yes, he's a businessman. Yes, he wants a good deal, a trade deal. But there are elements even within the United States of America who say that he wants to bully India into submission, and that clearly is not happening. China bullied America back, put reciprocal tariffs on the United States of America. Is that the way forward? And are we now entering, perhaps for the next 3.5 years of Trump era, perhaps a freeze or a downside when it comes to India-US relations, very different from what was actually expected?
Absolutely right, Gaurav. This is a downwardly spiral of India-US of relations, because both sides, especially the Indian side, was careful about not engaging in a verbal volley with the US President Donald Trump. But if you see, he is trying to make it personal. He is taking it to social media, social media posts. And initially he posted this thing. Indian government of India did not react to it, but now he's trying to escalate it further by saying that India is responsible, and in a way, India is fueling the Russian war machinery and holding India accountable for the life losses in Ukraine, while he is not saying the similar things about China, which is the biggest buyer of Russian oil. And India has always explained to the US side that the oil purchase decisions are being made, as far as the India's energy security is concerned, are being made by the market forces, by the availability of the cheap Russian oil. And also India is adhering to the price cap put in place by the European players. So clearly, this is a targeted attack on India. Now we have to see that how government of India reacts to this thing, and if there is a further escalation, more than 25%, because he has indicated out of an additional penalty over and about this 25%, but he hasn't spelled it out. And the 7th August deadline is approaching, and before that, this social media post has come. So Gaurav, we have to be very mindful and very watchful about this thing, that what that penalty could be, because India has already...
And he knows this penalty is counterproductive. It's being paid for by the American taxpayers. It's already having an adverse impact on the American, markets, and yet he continues to do this, Pranay.
You're absolutely right. And if you see, this tariff war is already, hitting on the US consumers' pocket. The recent employment data clearly shows that these tariffs are not working. The July data said that the projection of 1 lakh or over 1 lakh jobs has resulted, has not yielded the desired result, and only 73,000 jobs were created. And if you see the corrected data of May and June, this clearly shows that on an average in last quarter, only 35,000 jobs, Trump administration or his US economy could generate. This is a big marker, and especially the job losses have happened in the manufacturing sector, to which, the President Donald Trump has tried fueling the jobs. The entire objective of making these tariff announcements was only to fuel jobs or create more jobs in US economy, which is not happening. So clearly this is a time for reflection, for the Trump administration. But on the other side, if you see, the way he is, holding India accountable and targeting India, this is something really serious. Especially, on these counts, the way India and US has been strategic partners, you don't expect a strategic partner to make these kind of remarks.
Absolutely.
In this
it
engagement.
took 25 years post-Pokhran to build this relationship, and both India and America invested heavily in this relationship. But it takes one Donald Trump to once again bring back all those suspicions. Can India trust the United States of America, especially when it comes to strategic ties in the field of defense. But we'll be tracking that story very, very closely. We've seen his words. Let's see what the action is. If he thinks India is the apprentice and he can say you're fired, that clearly is not happening.